Okay, so right out the gate, man, I was right about some stuff. That's always nice. Beginning of this season, we hear 1-1 specifically talk about the algorithms he uses to work out the literally infinite things that can happen on the train. Like I said 2 reviews ago. So that felt very, very good. Also, the denizen companion to the main characters this season flat out stated that the good of the train comes from the journey and not the destination, which is another thing that I talked about in a previous review. I'm on a roll today. Too bad I didn't love this season, which isn't to say there's not a ton to like here. You guys know I had very mixed feelings about season 1. I thought it did a lot of things really, really well, and I'm very happy that it got made. And there are things I love about it. Atticus is one of my favorite animated characters ever, if you guys hadn't caught on. I don't know if you guys could tell, but I like corgis just in general, and he was a genuinely entertaining character who carried a lot of the season on his adorable tiny little back. And I like Tulip, and I like 1-1 as he's not really a character, he's more an enigma than anything else. And I definitely like the legacy of season 1, which has been permeating the show since then for the most part. That's actually one of the reasons I thought this season was weaker than some of the last couple. It doesn't branch off of that legacy. Like in season 2, we see people in their little pods getting not entirely personalized videos, but at least direct videos from 1-1 telling them what the purpose of the train is. And the implication was always that was something that he instituted after his encounter with Tulip, because he talked about Atticus in them, right? But we know that for sure now, since season 4 takes place in the past. I don't know exactly when in the past, and I don't particularly care. I'm sure I could work it out from like context clues in the real world sections and from like Amelia's age, because she's in this again this season briefly. But frankly, I don't care when specifically it took place, just that it took place in the past. And that was interesting, for sure. So I'm pretty sure we saw not literally the beginning of Amelia's takeover, but something that happened as an immediate result of it happening elsewhere on the train in this season, which is interesting to me for sure. But the last couple of seasons have built off of the legacy of Tulip or the legacy of Amelia as the false conductor, and I was really looking forward to seeing more of that, and this season doesn't build on any of that at all. Seeing aspects of the train's operation from before Amelia ever took over was interesting. Like our 2 main characters, this time Ryan and Min, they're put in suits with little 1-1 symbols on the chests, and their shoes are encased in those magnetic latch things that Simon used last season. And this seems to be to separate them from their possessions until a point in their journey when those possessions are helpful to their growth again. And this may or may not be something that was done to every single passenger, but at the very least it was done to some of them, and explains where those shoe things came from at the very least. And clearly passengers were not given video messages in their pods back then, since it was the character of Kez who told them what the train was and how it works. That was fascinating, and seeing the actual purpose of those shoe cover things to hold passengers in place sometimes until the steward can show up to give them a message or give them back their things was intriguing. And again, I didn't dislike this season. I was hoping to like it more. I was hoping that it would be something different. And I need to stop giving this show so much crap for it not being what I expected it to be, because this was still a good season. Like, I know I've been very negative up to this point. I've tried not to be. But it's hard. Being negative is fun. But I really did still enjoy this season. I guess what it really comes down to is I'm kind of bummed out that it still looks like this is going to be the final season. And I definitely feel like going back to the past with this one, they were building to showing us more of the Amelia stuff, the time when Amelia was in charge, so that they could tie future stories into Amelia's legacy and how it relates to Tulip's legacy, and maybe even set things in motion to make the train better in general for everybody, passengers and denizens alike. I kind of feel like that's the direction the story's been going. And if it doesn't get any more seasons, then if this was set up for that, it's just never gonna come of anything at this point. And that bums me out. I would have rather seen more of that latter stuff here now than what's going to end up being a boarded setup for it down the line. I did really, really like, though, that this season felt more like the first season again. It felt like just a journey through the train. Because even season 2, it's like, yeah, season 1 had the stuff with the false conductor, and that was obviously atypical of a standard journey through the train. In fact, this is probably the most standard journey through the train that we've ever seen in the show so far, even though it's a rare twin journey. It's a rare journey meant for two people at literally the exact same time for virtually the same reasons. But season 1 still felt more straightforward, whereas season 2 was framed around a denizen going on their journey, which feels like a bigger deal than just two people at once, especially two people who have known each other literally their entire lives. So I like that a lot. I like the show going back to its roots and using that as an opportunity to show us how things were different, at least some of the ways things were different before season 1 happened. And I really like both of the main characters in this one. Ryan and Min are both great. I thought they were a little bland at first, but as I got to know them and as the relationship between them continued to build, they just got better and better. Seeing their friendship grow in the very first episode and then seeing it unravel, even though they haven't realized that it's unraveled yet, really was kind of heartbreaking. It, like, everybody has friends that they grew apart from, right? And it hurts. And being reminded of it hurts. Unless they were just really toxic, I guess. Lay down. Lay down, Klaus. Like that moment where we see that at the exact same time they tried to call each other and then hesitated and then didn't. There's a lot of power in just that one scene, man. But I think it was clear very early on what their problems were that needed to be solved by the train. And I don't know, I had a pretty good idea of the kinds of lessons they were going to have to learn those lessons from the very beginning. Like, the specifics were obviously a surprise to me, and that's fantastic, because this season had some of the weirdest cars in it. It was great in that regard. But their journeys felt very straightforward. Even the moment where Ryan gets his exit and almost takes it, even though it would mean leaving Min behind in danger, didn't surprise me. I saw it happen and I'm just like, yeah, that makes perfect sense that that would happen right now to keep the story dramatic. But like I said, that was only really a problem at first. Like, again, it was very clear, like, Ryan's thing is that he wants to get to his end goal regardless of the work that it takes to get there, and so he rushes ahead and doesn't do the work. Whereas Min is so afraid that he'll fail that he just stands still. And there's more nuance to it than that, but that's the basics of it. That was very apparent from the very beginning. And it was really great that these two people who know each other so well, like, the best version of each of them is somewhere in the middle of both, so they're able to find a happy medium that works for both of them, and then reclaim their friendship by the end. That was fantastic. I liked that a lot. But because they were so dichotomous, is that a word? It sounds like a word. I'm going to roll with it. It was obvious that's how things were going to work out from the very beginning. It was satisfying to see, because these characters have so much chemistry with each other. They were genuinely believable lifelong friends. But it was still predictable. The fun of this season really did come from that chemistry between the characters, which, like I mentioned, was great. The weird stuff in the various cars they visited, which again was fantastic. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, because that would spoil some pretty fantastically weird stuff. And of course, the character of Kaz, who I'm probably going to pronounce as Kaz at least once in this video, because most of the time in this season when they were saying her name, it sounded like they were saying Kaz. And I kind of get the sense that Kaz's development, see, I already did it, that Kaz's development was quite possibly the main point of this season. I think this season was made fully acknowledging that Ryan and Min's journey, while still fun to watch because they are great characters, would feel kind of predictable, so they gave us this strong character of Kaz to make up for that, to balance it out. Because I can't believe I'm going to say this. She's not an animal companion. She's a little concierge belle, which was a cool idea. It was a very creative design. She's a concierge belle that talks from the space between the bell and the base, can ring like a normal bell, and she flies around and shoots blue pixie dust out of her base that she can use to manipulate objects. It was very, very cool. And she's a genuinely helpful person. She wants to help people, but she's also kind of scatterbrained. She has trouble communicating her ideas sometimes. And like her two passengers, she has a problem with how she relates to people, because the other thing about Min and Ryan is that they don't want to disappoint each other, so they have trouble talking about their true feelings with each other. That's one of the breakthroughs they have to make. Her thing is similar to that. When she makes a mistake trying to help someone, she feels so bad about it and gets so embarrassed about it that she runs away from the problem rather than just addressing it, when most of the time a simple, "I'm sorry, how can I help fix this?" would be enough to fix it. Now, I haven't said it outright in any of these reviews, but I've kind of alluded to the fact that the role of the denizens to help passengers is super unfair, man. It's super unfair to expect them to upend their lives whenever a passenger comes by, sometimes to their genuine detriment, just so that that passenger can learn a lesson and then move on. But this season kind of showed us that 1-1's algorithms don't just pair the passengers with denizens who help them along their journeys. They also pair the denizens with passengers who, upon their journeys, kind of help them work through their problems too. Like, granted, those problems are more often than not caused by passengers for a lot of them, but like, look at what happened here with Kaz. It was Min and Ryan confronting her about her tendency to just run away from her problems. They got her to face the death squad of weird denizens that was chasing them by the end and apologize and then fix things with them. That is a thing that would not have happened if she had not met them and been as helpful with them as she has apparently been with other passengers in the past. And eventually one of those other guys would have caught up with her, and in their anger, they would have done something they would have regretted eventually, because they don't turn out to be bad people, and either hurt or maybe even killed her. Like, especially that butterfly guy. He really wanted to kill her. And I'm still not going to show you these characters because I want that to sound as weird to you as it still does to me. But, I really like Kaz. She might be my favorite companion to any of the passengers in this show so far. She's at the very least right up there with Atticus. She's absolutely hysterical. One of the funniest and most genuinely likable comic relief characters in anything ever, animation or otherwise. I know that's a bold statement, but I mean it 100%. Like, for example, when Tulip had to say goodbye to Atticus, I was sad for her, and I was bummed because it meant that we weren't going to have him as an animal companion to the passenger anymore going forward. But when Min and Ryan had to say goodbye to Kaz, I was borderline heartbroken. They formed such a strong bond with this character so fast, and I felt like I kind of did right along with them. The writing was so strong around this character. Like, I guess the writing was just so strong around the character chemistry this season in general. That's, I guess, the takeaway from this season. That is the strongest thing about it. The character chemistry writing here is just, it's wow. And that's not even to mention how they also technically help. This is going to sound really weird. It's one of the reasons you need to watch this season. They technically help Kez's roommate, who is also a castle hotel where Kez works as the concierge pal, to work through her problems too. That's Morgan. She's technically the villain of the season, but also she's just a lonely, heartbroken giant castle who can control all of the land around her and all of the objects within her. This show's great. Like, I want to be 100% clear. I didn't like this season as much as season 2. I probably liked it better than season 3, but not by much. So it's kind of right there with season 1 for me, because while I did like some of the really strong aspects of season 3, it's still the most uncomfortable for me, so it's kind of at the bottom of the list, right? No offense to it, it's still great, but that's just kind of where it sits. But saying that, please acknowledge that this is still a fantastic season of television. I still gobbled this up all in one sitting. It was great. Just, I wish it had been great in slightly different ways. In some areas, if that makes sense. Man, guys, straight up, this show needs more seasons. I'm trying to think of a more impactful way to say it. But just put simply, said straight to the camera, in all honesty, as frankly as possible, this show needs more seasons. It deserves more seasons. There is clearly some sort of overarching story that's happening here, mostly in the background most of the time, it seems, but it is happening, and I desperately want to see that story come to fruition. I want to see what's up with Amelia. I want to see if Cher gets off the train. I want to see what's up with Grace and the other not Apex. I want to see Atticus again, and hopefully he doesn't get turned into a monster this time. I want to see, because he didn't really go on a journey in season 1. He was just along for tulips, right? Like, I guess technically he went on a journey back to his old role, but I want to see 1-1 go on a journey. I have a real strong sense that that's what they're building up to. And I want to see that. I want to see him change and grow, even more so than he already has, because there's still a sinister aloofness to the way he interacts with the world, even in the not in the past stuff. Right? Like, maybe I'm reading too much into things, or maybe it's just wishful thinking, because I still think the way the train operates is kind of effed up, and actually there's a thing I want to talk about in regard to that in a second, but I do feel like that's where they're going with this, and I want them to tell that story. I want them to be able to tell that story. So tweet it. Tweet that you want more Infinity Train. Do it. I might even be participating in a thing for Infinity Train relatively soon, like a collaboration with some other creators. I'm not sure. I'm hammering out the details of that right now. That'll be fun. Watch that if it happens. Well, watch it anyway, but especially watch it if I end up being involved in it, right? And like, first and foremost, if you haven't watched this latest season yet, do so. And I know it's a big ask, but do so legally through like the actual HBO Max app if you can. Just show them you want more. Give them numbers that they can crunch, right? Because I've said it before, my main nitpick with this show up to this point has been that I don't feel like it utilizes its full potential all the time. It would be a real shame if it didn't get to utilize its full potential overall in the end. Oh, also, there was actually some pretty sick music in this season, too. Like, the two characters are musicians. Like, they're nothing amazing or anything, but it was pretty fun. So that if you needed extra incentive There it is. I planned to segue into it, but I kind of completely lost track of what I was doing there for a second. Didn't realize it until after the fact. So I'm coming back to the video, recording a little bit extra, just to splice it in here wherever I can find the spot to do it. But this season also does a fantastic job of making the train seem way more sinister than it did before. Like, it still seems like it helps literally everyone it can, and that these people's lives would be disastrous without the train. Like, they just straight up fail to ever reach their potential. And some of them, like Simon, have, like, genuine problems. Like, Simon very likely would have turned out a bad person if he hadn't come onto the train, too, just for different reasons. He's that kind of character. But man, this thing, what's it called? I looked up what it was called. 1 second. Yeah, it's called a docent. This thing, from the art gallery car, holy crap, wow. It's a creature, a large creature, mind you, entirely made up of what seems like the arms of passengers who failed to get out of the car in time. My hope is that that's just an illusion, that they aren't really the arms of passengers, that it's just there to be kind of an incentive in situations like the situation that Ryan and Min found themselves in this episode, right? And to facilitate the kind of interactions that they had in this episode specifically. But if this thing really is made up of the real arms of past passengers, it's made up of the arm with the number on it. Which means that even if those passengers did survive their encounter with this thing, they can't leave now. They don't have their number anymore. It's really freaking creepy, and it gets creepier the more you think about it. I don't have anything else to say about it. It's just, it's more evidence that as helpful as this train is, it's also really, really messed up. As per usual, I'd like to know, what do you guys think of Infinity Train Season 4 Duet, I think. I will have to double check that before I write out the video title. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out my social medias and links to the various ways you can help out the channel. All of those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.